Imagine stepping into a room where the air is so thick with the scent of burning cedar and crushed cardamom that it feels heavy, almost suffocating. Before you lies a table groaning under the weight of roasted meats and strange, vibrant grains. To the uninitiated, this is a feast. To a forensic investigator, this is a crime scene. We aren't here to admire the opulence or the golden chalices. We are here to perform an autopsy of power. In the year 700 BCE, the Neo-Assyrian King Sennacherib didn't just eat to survive, he ate to colonize. Every spice that hit the tongue of an elite guest in Nineveh was a geopolitical statement, a map of conquered territories distilled into a single bite. When we look at the charred remains of his botanical experiments and the cuneiform receipts of his kitchens, we see something more than dinner. We see a ruler who believed that if he could command the water to flow uphill and the exotic flora of distant mountains to bloom in the desert, he could command the very nature of reality. This meal was a weapon, a psychological tool designed to remind every vassal and general that the king's reach was absolute. Today, we are analyzing this historical menu as an autopsy of power. To understand the plate, we must first understand the garden. Sennacherib did not merely buy his ingredients, he engineered them. At Nineveh, he constructed a palace without rival, surrounded by a massive botanical park that functioned as a living trophy case. As historian Stephanie Daly suggests, this may have been the true site of the legendary Hanging Gardens. But this wasn't a hobbyist's greenhouse. This was resource control on a cosmic scale. The social hierarchy of the Neo-Assyrian Empire was built on the concept of the Assyrian peace, a paradox where stability was maintained through calculated, industrial-scale terror. This dynamic extended directly to the kitchen. When we see cuneiform tablets listing thousands of containers of choice wine and mountain aromatics, we are looking at the output of a massive labor hierarchy. For every dish of spiced venison served to an elite official, thousands of deportees from the Levant, Babylon, and the Zagros Mountains were mobilized. These weren't just farmers, they were the human machinery of the king's appetite, tasked with digging kilometers of canals to bring mountain water to a desert garden, just so a specific, non-native herb could survive the Mesopotamian sun. In this world, elite consumption was a vertical ladder. At the top stood the king, the only individual capable of eating the world. Below him were the magnates, the generals and governors who were permitted to share in this luxury as a form of political glue. To eat from the king's table was to be absorbed into his shadow. To be excluded was a death sentence. The menu utilized social stratification through sensory deprivation for the masses and sensory overload for the few. While the common soldier or laborer subsisted on barley rations and onions, the elite plate featured spices like saffron or thyme and fruits like pomegranates and grapes, items that signaled the king's ability to bend the climate to his will. Every spice was a surrogate for a conquered province. If the king served a sauce infused with resins from the Mediterranean coast, he was reminding his guests that his armies had marched to the Great Sea and brought its essence back in a jar. This wasn't just controlled excess, it was a demonstration of material culture as a form of dominance. The message was clear. If the king can sustain a lush, spice-filled forest in the middle of a war-torn landscape, imagine what he can do to your city if you withhold your tribute. The meal didn't just represent the empire, it was the empire, harvested, slaughtered, and served on a silver platter. To truly understand Sennacherib's power, I have to step out of the archives and into the heat of the kitchen. Recreating a dish from the Royal Botanical Gardens isn't just a matter of following a recipe, It is a grueling exercise in material logistics. I've gathered the components for a slow-braised lamb seasoned with the aromatics of the mountains, juniper, coriander, and silphium-like resins. But the first thing that hits you isn't the smell, it's the weight of the labor. In the ancient world, there was no such thing as a quick spice rub. To get the flavor profiles demanded by the Neo-Assyrian court, I have to spend hours at a heavy stone mortar and pestle. This is the bodily exhaustion the king never saw, but his servants felt every day. Grinding tough, dried berries and fibrous roots into a fine powder requires a repetitive, rhythmic force that makes your forearms ache and your shoulders burn. In the palace without rival, dozens of cooks would have been doing this simultaneously, the sound of stone hitting stone creating a constant percussive undercurrent to the palace's daily operations. As I start the fire, I'm making the same judgment calls those ancient cooks faced. The heat in Mesopotamia was unforgiving. Without refrigeration, spice wasn't just for flavor, it was a preservative and a mask. I'm layering the scents, first the wood smoke, then the sharp medicinal tang of juniper. This is the sensory cost of the garden. Sennacherib's engineers had to build sophisticated aqueducts, like the one at Jerwan, just to keep these temperate plants from shriveling. As the explorer, I'm feeling the fragility of this system. If my flame is too high, the oils and the rare spices scorch and turn bitter. If the water supply in Nineveh failed for even a week, the king's entire culinary identity, his imported flavor, would have literally turned to dust. The sourcing alone is a modern headache that mirrors the ancient trade hierarchy. I had to hunt for specific varieties of cumin and sesame that haven't been over-hybridized, trying to find that raw, pungent edge described in cuneiform lists. In the 7th century BCE, these weren't items you found at a market, they were tribute. To get the seeds I'm currently tossing into the pot, a governor in a distant province had to extort them from local farmers, package them, and transport them by caravan for hundreds of miles under armed guard. As the meat braises, the smell is intense. It's floral, earthy, and slightly resinous. It doesn't smell like food in the modern sense, it smells like a forest. This is the sage realization. By eating this, the guest was physically consuming the king's landscape. The effort I'm putting into this one pot, the grinding, the temperature control, the meticulous sourcing, was multiplied by 10,000 for a royal banquet. The cost of this meal wasn't just silver, it was the total caloric output of an entire class of people, all burned away to create a fleeting moment of flavor for one man. As the steam clears and the dish is finally plated, the sensory evidence confirms what the ruins of Nineveh only whisper. This wasn't a meal meant for comfort, it was a meal meant for awe. The sharp, cooling bite of the mountain herbs cutting through the richness of the fat isn't just a culinary balance, it is a map of the world brought to heel. Every mouthful proves that the king has successfully terraformed the wild into the domestic. The taste confirms the power, the labor reveals the hierarchy, and the sheer excess of imported aromatics communicates an authority that could command the very reign. We began this investigation by looking at a menu as an autopsy, and the results are clear. Sennacherib used the plate to demonstrate that his sovereignty was not limited to the people he conquered, but extended to the soil they walked on and the plants they grew. In the Neo-Assyrian world, if you controlled the spice, you controlled the story of civilization itself. This meal was the ultimate proof that for the king, the ability to consume the world was the ultimate right to rule it. We don't just cook ancient food, we decode the civilizations behind them.